and so the thing is that what you want to do is you want to see if you can make sense of it. And later on in the book, they talk about research tables. And I'm going to strongly suggest that you include a research table when you're organizing these. Now, here's the deal. If you use a research table when you're organizing it, well, heck, you might as well put it in the paper, right? Because it really does. If you take a look at the first one where it talks about studies examining water pipe use among college students in the United States, what they're doing is the top table is for the United States and Europe, so the Western world. The bottom table is the Middle East. So when we take a look at comparisons as far as lifetime smoking, you notice that the very first one, the Premack one, is the highest one is 41% of lifetime smoking. Down here at the bottom, when we take a look at the Middle East, you see that the top one is 60%, and the others are all 40%. So what it does is just taking a look and organizing that material. It's the hardest part, is organizing it so you can convey the information. And anybody else have any? Take a look over there where it says beliefs of water pipe smoking. That's 160 or 163 or something like that. You notice what they did is they went through and under beliefs of water pipe smoking, they're starting out saying there are 5 studies have examined beliefs about water pipe smoking among American and European college students. Overall, these studies suggest that college students perceive water pipe use to be less harmful and more so. Okay. So in other words, what they're doing is they're being very specific about what's being conducted and which ones are available. Down here, you'll even they even have some very specifics about the statistics and such, so you can identify whether they're valuable or not. So that's yes.
In a lit review, you would want to use like what they did for their methods. You'd want to explain how you found the literature.
What you're going to do is part of it is going to be a methodology. In other words, the parts that you're going to be using, and we'll be talking about this as we go on. We're going to be talking. There's your introduction. There's your methodology. There is your analysis and discussion. There is the summary, why is this coming? It's conclusions and recommendations, and then you have your references at the end. So in other words, you're saying this is the title. Your introduction talks about what it sets the stage, and then the methodology says this is how we went out and found this stuff, and then you start talking about the content. This is where you talk about your 3 or 4 areas of interest, and then what you do is at the end you kind of draw all this together. You say, and it isn't a summary. The summary is that you completely restate the things that you've already, remember in high school, and I know we've got at least one English teacher there, but in high school you've got that typical 5-paragraph model for writing a paper. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. Right? Isn't that pretty much how that goes, Laura?
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's exactly what you do here in the sense that you start out with an opening paragraph which kind of lays out what's going to happen. And remember, when you're talking about writing, consider that you're building a framework for your readers to hang a hat on. In other words, you start out at the beginning of a section. You don't necessarily you start out and in the first paragraph you kind of give them an idea as to what this is going to include. And then what you do is you go through and you have the different sections. And then, but like I said, when you do conclusions and recommendations, what you do is you take a look at the content that has been shown and kind of draw the strings together. And the recommendations are, so what are you going to do with this? In other words, now that we have this information, I've got all this information about hookahs. No, better yet, let's go back to the cyberbullying. I've got all this information about cyberbullying. What can I do with this information? What kind of what needs to be done? Can this be used in schools? And more importantly, when you go out and you take a look at research, you find the holes in the research. Gosh, I wish there was more stuff in there about college students and cyberbullying, because there's a lot of that going on. So what you're saying is that you're saying that needs to be done. That's a recommendation for the future. And one way, if you're ever looking for a type of research to do, go take a look and read the last couple paragraphs of a bunch of studies in the same topic, and they'll tell you where the holes are. So that if they wanted to do original research. So what do you think? Do you think you've got a pretty good grasp on this? Okay, so here's what I'm going to do, and that is that I'm going to open up. Let's see. Let me find it. Not there. Not there. Not there.
Come here.
Well, it seems to have disappeared. So what I'm going to do is go open up a page and then share it. And I'm going to be going out to Module 3. And now I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and I must admit, this is, as I said, this is the first time I've taught this way, and this lesson turned out pretty well. I'm getting the idea across. So, what I want you to do, one of the things I've done in the past, have any of you ever heard of Our Town? I think I asked that before. And still the idea of Our Town is that when this guy is talking about things that have been happening in their town, it's along the same lines as finding the areas of interest that you would be using in a literature review. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is go through, read this incredibly well-written material here that I have on this page. And one of the things I want you to do is I want you to go over and take a look at the RWLD. And in the RWLD, what it does is I've got this kind of an introduction as to what it is. This is a really good video. It's only about 5 minutes. And the guy's talking about what literature reviews are and what they aren't. And then down here, this is one which was actually written for graduate students. Do you happen to know any? And this one is they talk about it. And then as I talked about, the best metaphor that I've found to this, and it's telling a story based upon background. Having the knowledge, we can tell stories about people using hookahs in college now because we have all this information, whether there's a gender difference and how that relates to cigarette. Those are some important things. This is a video, and it's called Our Town. It's a 2-hour video. You don't have to watch the whole thing, but maybe some people like to do that just because they're looking for something to watch. But what I'd like you to do is, as you're going through here, imagine, if you will, that you're just kind of looking at information about Grover's Corners, which is where this takes place. And as you're going through, see if there's some topics of interest that they keep coming back to, much like you would in a literature review. And you've already read chapters 1 and 2. So actually, this should say that you need to read chapters 3 and 4. But, actually, 1 and 2 are the things that are relevant to what we're doing right now. And we just went over the literature reviews A and B, because I want you to have that as a background. And now we're going to go back to Module 3. And what I'd like you to do, in your wonderful way, is I'd like you to go in and I'd like you to answer these questions, not necessarily these questions, but these are writing prompts, thought questions to get you going on stuff. And what I want you to do, how does this fit? And I'd like you to really, we're thinking outside of the box. How does what you saw in that movie, and it isn't the content per se as much as the structure and the way in which that information was being given, how does that relate to what you're learning about a literature review? You may feel that it has absolutely no connection whatsoever. And by the way, if you put that down, you don't fail. You may find that there's absolutely, you don't think there's any connection whatsoever. But what I want you to do is really express yourself. Now, over here, I have created discussion groups. you click on discussion group, you'll see that I've got 2 groups of 4 and 2 groups of 3. And so what I'm interested in you're doing, and actually I realized, tell you what I need to do in our discussion group, I'm going to have 4 prompts, 1 for each group, and then you just simply build off that, like a thread, okay? So I'll create that. And then what I'd like you to do is you only need to respond to your partners, but make it worthwhile. Don't just do it to jump through my hoops with me. Make it a conversation. If somebody responds to you, respond back to them. There is no prescribed number. I just want to see a good conversation within the group. And what's really important is that between now and next week, I want you to go through and do that, but I want you to start thinking about a topic that you're going to use. And do any of you have anything of interest right now? Something that you would like to, that you would like, you've been at this thing for what, four semesters? There must be something about technology and dogs, right? Amanda would love that. But there must, do you have anything, see you, Lorena. Lorena's got a meeting she has to go to. Do you see anything, or does anyone have a specific interest that they have? Something that you think you might want to do some research into?
I was thinking something about flipped classrooms and student engagement.
Okay. And so what you want to do is you want to take a look at flipped classrooms. And actually, remember Jared Borman, who did a class with you? That's his specialty. And what I'm going to suggest is identify a topic and then find an expert. And actually, by the way, I'm Ilana Joram. Has she already told you that? Okay, she's going to tell you that. Be surprised, okay? Because I want to make sure that what I'm suggesting is correlating with what she's suggesting. And the idea is you identify a topic, and then you go out and you find an expert who can help guide you into where you find this. And then you look for literature reviews. Go out and just like you use Wikipedia to try to make sense out of it, look at the literature reviews, see what's there, and then find other literature that goes with it. Now, I would like to meet with each of you on an individual basis. And I did have it all set up for this week. I think that's probably premature, don't you? Give it another week. Now, here's what I'd like to ask of you. And that is that I was trying to figure out times that would be best. And what it would be is that I would meet with you outside of class, but times that would be best for us to connect. And I'm going to share my screen again. This is what my calendar looks like. And actually, let's go to the following week. There we go. This is what my calendar looks like. And what I'm wondering is, I'm guessing, is evening a better time for you? And I don't know if anybody has a lunchtime that they'd like to do. I know as teachers, we never have enough time to, you can always tell when you're sitting at a table eating lunch with somebody who's a teacher, because there it is and there it's gone, right? But, so what times could, tell me what kind of, actually, could you put it into the chat room, the times that would be best for you and the days that would be best for you?
Dr. Z, could you just set up like a Google Calendar with your available times, and then we could fill out when it works for us?
Actually, my calendar is so complicated. What I was going to do is, based upon the times that you give me, I'm going to make it so that there's appointments that you can sign up for. You see what I'm saying, Katrina? And so it looks like after 5 o'clock is good. Most evenings after 7:30. So if I did some evenings, say between we'll say 6:30 and 9, those would be good. Kelly could do early morning after 4.